Welcome back, everybody. Bet you didn't know I had this. A Gehl forage box on an Oliver running gear. And you're saying, why are you going to mess with this, Chris? Well, I want to get this conveyor belt changed. It doesn't look too bad on the top side, other than walnuts and raccoon contributions. We had a problem here in southern Michigan with corn called vomitoxin. Just to keep it simple, it's a mold that grew into the grain. They test for it in parts per million. And the ethanol plant, where I can get the best price for my corn, rejects over 6 parts per million. And mine is over that. But the last load I sent out, I ran through the grain cleaner. You might have seen the short. And someone had said that getting the fines out, the smaller kernels and that stuff, that's where the worst of the mold is at. And at least on that one load, that got me down to where I didn't get not only not rejected, but no discounts either. So I'm gonna, when you ship out that much corn, even at 1%, 2% of stuff getting cleaned out, it starts adding up. Back when we used the grain cleaner, we would dump it in this forage box. That was wet. We'd take it over to the neighboring dairy farmer and they'd feed it to the cows. This stuff is not going to be fit for consumption because it's where the nastiest of the corn is. And doesn't look bad to look at it, but it's there. And I thought about putting a manure spreader and spreading it out, but I did have some foxtail and spots. So there's probably going to be some weed seeds. And if I spread it in the field, I'm basically spreading weed seeds as well. So I think it's going to be more convenient. Just put her along the edge of the woods or somewhere. Let the animals eat it. See how well the deer do on it. Yeah, they deserve a good meal. So I guess first things first, you can see the canvas or the whatever hanging underneath there, right in there. Let's see, at least 2 flat tires. I've got the Ross-O-Matic air inflator. Hopefully they will stay up long enough to get this out of here where I can service it. I'm going to do all this outdoors because, like I said, there's a lot of contributions for over the years from different animals. That, let's see, we got the, what is that, the barn swallows, the raccoons, bats. There's some, even some walnut shells in there. Stuff I don't want in my shop. So let's get inflating some tires. I gotta move some other stuff around, but I guess I'll start with the tires to see how well they're gonna hold air before I get too excited. Come on, baby, do your thing. It says there's like 7 PSI in it, but it's not going up yet. And I can see it blowing around. Not a good sign. Let's see, I think we got, I know the right for the left front's up, left rear's up, so we just gotta worry about the right side. She's coming up. 1 tire up. And that one's probably up to 15 PSI. Sure I get it up to the shop. All right, 4 tires up. Stuff moved out of the way. Let's see if we can get her to move. They've left us a lot of treats. Guess my first mission is to try to get it to turn, and maybe I'll pull it out somewhere else and try to roll that crud off. before I work on it too much. Got these to take grease without any troubles. Dad was always good about grease and stuff. Between that and keeping it indoors. Alright, I'll put you here. You'll be able to see if stuff moves. We'll put that there. Belt no move. But the drive moves.
Come on. Let's do the nasty. Do we have to? Yeah, afraid so.
I'm gonna watch all that crud go in the trash can. There's the splice. Kind of figuring if I could hook onto the splice, I could pull the new one through with the old one. If the old one doesn't get hung up. Wonder how many diseases have fallen in there right now. Or I could just, cut it, rip it in half. Put a hole in it, tie a string to the new one, and feed it through that way. I've got the two laced together, and the new one's, a little wider than the old one from Ware, and I still got it off center. But it's laced up now. We're not fighting that again. Should have been recording it. Let's see if I can get it to pull through. I think there'd be somewhere there should be a sticker, a little stick man dying for what I'm about to do. But it's not hooked up to the tractor. I'm caught. Whew, I got it tucked in there before I laced it up. We'll cut that short for, length, clarity, and sanity. But I'm gonna have to back off this tensioner, or the adjustment, because there's no way these two are gonna meet currently, which is fine because the chain was getting to the end of its length. Oh, she's not wanting to go. Which side is the welded on side? Yeah, I think that nut's welded on. The other one should be the jam nut. Of course, there ain't enough room to get the box out there. It might be time for the fire wrench. Oh, there she goes. It heard me. I got that baby all in there. So I think it's time to get a tractor. I greased up grease zerks and everything. I think it's time to get a tractor and hook up to it and see if it won't unload itself. The 1600's easy to get to. Let's see if it'll cold start. Put you right here. You'll be able to see the drape or whatever that is, belt turn. we do to turn on the beaters? Let's see if we can make the apron move. Okay, that's going. We'll turn that back off. There's something in here. I greased it. To engage those beaters. Oh, golly! Wanting to turn. Maybe some oil to go with that grease. Hey look, a mouse nest. I'm sure that's helping. Come on. There it goes. The mouse nest. That's good for him. Oh, she kicked out. I think it needs some juice iron on the splines. We'll start with oil. Get that stuff freed up. That's it. Alright, I'm going to take it somewhere, you know, where all this stuff can fall out and not be right by my shop. You know, who wants that? As the mouse nest slowly gets chewed up and spit out. Yeah, we're out here where, you know, all this stuff could come out. There's some I dumped back in January. They've ate some of it, but still a lot there. Tells you something about the condition of it. So when people cry that I'm throwing away perfectly good feed, I am not. I'm trying to make good out of what I do have. You'll see. All right, let's get her clicking. Oh yeah, look at all that stuff. Contributions from the raccoons. It's heading this way. Avert your eyes. Pretty simple mechanism here. Just gotta see if I hold this, then it doesn't move anymore. Well, it does some. That's the stopper. Probably as things get loosed up, it'll work better. I should probably oil those chains too. Well, they're moving. Probably asking yourself, Chris, where did you find the belt for an old Gehl self-unloading forage box? Well, I found the serial number tag over on the other side there. I found that it was a BU94 model. So I plugged that into the Google, found where I found a manual, was able to figure out the part number for that belt, punched that in, and couldn't find it through Gehl, but of all places, AGCO had that in their book of belts for all sorts of things, including other brands. And was able to find I think it's still current, but I was able to find one through a parts warehouse for old stuff, and it came in, and by gum, it's the right thing. Definitely want to make sure all this worked before I threw something in it and then had to clean it out by hand. Nobody wants that. Here comes a load. Ew. If you've gotten this far in the video, you might be asking yourself, what have I done? Where am I at in my life? Sure, I love old farm machinery, but where do I draw the line? I think I'm gonna go oil some chains while it's doing this. I think it's ready. Now I can put it back where it was until I actually need it. But the reason for getting it around now is looks like fertilizer is going to get spread pretty soon. And fertilizer comes with a bill, and bills need paid. So I'm going to have to ship some grain out to make sure I have enough coin to pay for fertilizer. Oh, looks like it's going good. So, need a place to put those screenings as I clean it. We'll have video. All that old-timey gears and stuff. Doing their thing. Flip of a lever. Shut off the beaters. Another lever. The apron stops moving. Adjust the speed. Only does a couple clicks, some more clicks, and full speed. So corn goes up. Goes in, there's an inner screen. Hopefully you can hear me, and probably better if I go to the other side just to see. There's an inner screen that has big holes that corn can drop through, but things like bigger pieces like cob and stalk, they stay in there and they go, and then they catch this tube right there. There's a little scoop to help pick those big pieces up and drop them in. They drop on down. The corn falls through the inner screen and then lands against this screen and just keeps working its way down through. You can adjust the pitch by raising the hitch up and down to how fast it goes through. And then just that constant turning. So all the little bits fall through the screen. The clean corn falls out here. And down underneath, we can get a good view. You probably cannot, but there's a little cross auger that brings all those fines and crud down to the front part here, and then it came with a small auger to run it up to wherever you want to dump it. First load, I just let it build up on the ground, and well, that gets old. Very windy day today. Trying to get her going good, get some good output. Here you can see it a little bit falling out. And it would make good hog chicken feed if it wasn't, like I was saying, the nastiest stuff is there too, the most contaminated. So, not fit for consumption, at least not this year. And the old Gehl forage box. And we got the first pile in a truck already showing, and that's how much is cleaned out, so not too bad. The nice thing about using this versus a manure spreader is I don't have to move the wagon. I just hook up the PTO and run the conveyor a little bit, move that stuff forward, and have room for some more. Whereas the manure spreader would have moved it backwards. So she's rolling on good now. Just got her wide open. I'm gonna try to get a little more out of it. Got the 1600 on auger duty today. Hurrying along. Got a truck showing up again here shortly for another load. Got 1600 warming up. Guess I should have done a cold start video. Thought I'd look in here and show you kind of what it looks like. Kind of see that auger in the bottom for the fines. Here's what we got off from, oh, roughly a 2,000 bushel load. I guess I'd have to look at the slip again. A few bushels, not a whole lot. 1% of 2,000 bushels would be what, 20 bushels? I don't think there's that much in there. For those that may be wondering, why is Chris cleaning his corn? Well, it has to do with weather conditions last year and how we got mold in our corn. This ear looks pretty good. I picked it, I don't know, well before harvest started. Brought it here in the shop. And the conditions that lead to the reason, well, let's just start with the reason I'm cleaning it, is we've got something called a vomitoxin, and that's a mold. And it grows on the ear of the corn, and that gets us back to the conditions that make it grow. And we had the perfect storm for it last year. We had a lot of stress in June. We had basically zero rain from about the third week of May until the first week of July. Some guys didn't have corn germinate until the first week of July because of this dry weather. So that put the crop under some early stress. Then in August, when it was pollinating, you got the ear on the stalk, and the silks come up through the, the husks are covering this normally. We had damp conditions, cloudy, so not a lot of sunshine, and relatively cool nights in the 60s. And that was perfect conditions for these molds to get in through the silks as they're coming out and get established in the top of this ear and start growing. Then in October, when it's getting closer to harvest time, it was wet and cloudy again. And the corn was running a little behind. Now normally when the corn grows with the ear facing up like this, and then when it matures, it tips down and faces down. And that lets the rain run off the husk and keeps it from getting it on the grain. And pretty slick how it does that. Well, the ears hadn't tipped down, so any rain that came ran right down the husks in here, which just fed that mold. And then we had the lack of sunshine, and so it grew more. And there'd be ears you'd pick, and there'd be pink stuff up there on the end. And well, anyways, they call it vomitoxin because it'll make a lot of animals vomit. And hogs are sensitive to it. They'll just stop eating it if it gets to too high of a concentration. They'll refuse. They're pretty good sniffers for finding fungi and stuff. Beef cattle can handle a lot of stuff. They can eat it up to a lot higher level, but even they have their limits. It can slow down their rate of gain and their health. Poultry, if it's concentrated enough, it can affect them too. So in the short of it all is that it's bad and it makes it less usable. All my corn usually goes for ethanol, and you would say, well, what's the deal there? Well, in ethanol, all the starches out of the kernel is used up to make ethanol, but not all the kernel is starch. So what's left over is a high protein ground up meal that is very excellent animal feed. And so they, that's part of what they make their money off from, is selling the dried distiller's grain is what they call it after they're done with it. Makes excellent feed. But because all the starch was taken away, but you have a higher protein content, but you also have a higher level of vomitoxin. So they have to be extra careful about taking in corn with vomitoxin because it gets concentrated essentially. We found that it was mostly, because rain came in at the top of the ear. That's where the smallest kernels are, where the little bits and pieces. So if a guy cleans his grain, you get rid of a lot of the little stuff, and that's where a lot of the vomitoxin is hanging out. So you can hopefully get your levels lower. I did this back in January. I had 2 loads that got rejected, and then on the 3rd load I ran it through the grain cleaner, and it was low enough. Not only did it not get rejected, it had 0 discounts. Normally my corn is clean enough straight out of the combine. I don't get any discounts for foreign material. And some have asked, well, why don't you just clean it before you put it in the bin? Well, that's a bottleneck. Grain cleaner can only put it through so fast. I could buy a bigger one, but if I'm producing grain that is below their acceptable, clean enough where I don't receive any discounts, I honestly am not going to invest more money in cleaning it farther than I have to. Most of what's in there is still corn. It's just little bits and pieces of corn. So, yeah, I'm not going to spend that money. And we used to run it in the past to make our grain dryer more efficient, but that was before we had bigger, faster combines. And we also harvested wetter corn. So it was a little easier to keep up with it because it took longer to go through the dryer. Modern varieties dry out better. Once we got the 8570, I discontinued using the grain cleaner. Like I said, it was just too much of a bottleneck. The grain quality went up with a rotary combine. Really just didn't see the reason in running it. But we kept it around in case for some reason. And this year is that reason. I'm glad I kept it. Someone mentioned feeding it to, selling it for chicken feed or something. And well, honestly, if that's where all the worst stuff is, that stuff is just not fit for... So I'm going to dump it somewhere because it's just not fit to sell. I would not sell it to someone knowing that it would most likely make their animals sick. So we're just trying to make the best of what we do have by cleaning it up. It's slowing down the process of loading up trucks by a little bit. Can't quite get it through as fast as normal, but not too bad. I will also add that, well, until you ship some out and someone can test it, you really don't know how bad your levels are, and it varied a lot. Some guys have got stuff far worse than mine. Some guys have got stuff that's fine. One of my bins tested good. 2 of them tested very high. So, but that's just a small sample out of a big bin. And even when they test at the ethanol plant, they grind up a few kernels and then do their little test to determine it. So if you get the wrong kernels, the ones that were up here that had it all, the average is going to be higher. And if they got the ones down here, it's going to be lower. I don't know. They need to come up with a little better test. I know it's a lot to grind up a whole ear's worth or something, and it's still all blended together. But when you're just sampling like half a dozen kernels out of a 2,000 bushel truckload, and judging the whole thing by those few kernels, it's not going to be the most accurate thing. but it's also what I have to deal with. So you try to make the best of the situation. The places I did take the rejected loads to still knocked me 20 cents a bushel. Plus they were paying 15 cents less than the ethanol plant. So that was a 35 cent a bushel hit. So it's worth it to me to run it through the grain cleaner. Crop insurance would pick up part of that, but not all of it. So yeah, little extra time loading a truck to hopefully keep those levels low to where I can get my full dollar's worth. Yes, worth a little extra time. So that explains, hopefully, why I am doing what I am doing. Let's turn on the gas. We're going to see if it can run that 10-inch auger. There's not a lot going through it, but Ophelia has to get out of the way. All right, Ophelia, first start of the year for you. It's been kind of cold in the barn, even though it's warm out. Let's see. No preheat. She needs a little bit of a bath and touch up from the hydraulic pump. Oh man, no independent PTO. We're gonna see what she's made of. Just do this. We'll be gentle. Start out a little on the easy side. Give her some more. Oh, she can get dirty. I think it's going to handle it just fine. like a 10-inch auger that's barely up. With that much load with dry corn. Well, let's give her the rest. That's about all the grain cleaner can handle. The radiator, that's working. Still going strong. Lead's almost full. Not even having to run wide open. Oh boy, corn dust is nature's oil dry. You can see I got a little oil on the sheet metal there that the corn dust is soaking up. She's gonna need a bath. She needed a bath anyway. Probably saying what a waste, but that's the nastiest of the stuff. We don't want to feed that to anything, but the deer can have it. They can have all they want. We almost, not quite PTO speed. Speed it up a little more so I can throw it out a little farther. There we go. Flap let some through. Still letting some through. Oh, it needs re-bolted or replaced. Good enough for government work. gonna take a few minutes. The stuff flows too easy. Where I dumped some back in January. I've kind of poked and pawed at it, but mostly it's rotting away. Even they know it's not good stuff.